I met a traveler from an antique land who said, "Two vast and trunkless legs of stone stand in the desert. Near them, on the sand, half sunk, a shattered visage lies, whose frown and wrinkled lip and sneer of cold command tell that its sculptor well those passions read which yet survive. Stamped on these lifeless things, the hand that mocked them and the heart that fed. And on the pedestal, these words appear. My name is OZYMANDIAS, King of Kings. Look on my works, ye mighty, and despair. Nothing beside remains. Round the decay of that colossal wreck, boundless and bare, the lone and level sands stretch far away." Heat waves claim the lives of thousands. Desertification renders entire horizons inhospitable. Ancient forests are completely carbonized. City streets are consumed by the vengeful sea. Air and water become too saturated with forever chemicals to sustain life.
When I look into the future, the top emotions that I always feel are fear and hopelessness.
The future's scary. You have no idea what's gonna happen. I mean, it's terrifying. It's overwhelming.
Nothing is getting better. It seems like everything is just progressively getting worse.
In only a few centuries, humanity emitted enough greenhouse gases to dramatically alter the climate of the Earth. Mankind depleted the soil of its nutrients, filled the oceans with plastic and oil, and drove countless species to extinction. All we did, from agriculture to manufacturing to construction, played its part in killing the Earth.
There are very few, strong regulations when it comes to industrial farming.
A lot of the conversations I hear around the ecological issues here are still premised on the idea of a resource and protecting resources.
Most scholars now suggest that about half of the world's freshwater resources have basically been lost over the last 100 years.
Climate change didn't care about green energy pledges or carbon footprint calculators. It was purely a matter of greenhouse gases trapping heat. It is a poison deep within each and every one of us. A rot, a wound. It is festering and infected. It is the blood in your veins and the blood of children spilled in far-off city streets. It is the smog in the air and the smoke in your lungs and the fog in your mind. It is everything and it is nothing. It will kill us and itself before ever letting go, and you don't even know its name. But why did the people of the past let this happen? Science regarding the state of the climate had been available for decades, and yet society continued to lean towards convenience, ignorance, and inaction. What caused the people of the 21st century to let the apocalypse come to pass?
One of the tragedies, I'll say, of our modern society, of our post-Columbus world is a loss of imagination. To think that we can only operate with one system. The question isn't, how we got here, but how did we get stuck here? Our species has been incredibly diverse in terms of economic organization, social organization. You can have antagonistic systems right next to each other that both were more sustainable than what we're currently in.
The dominant empire of this late capitalist era was the United States of America, the latest incarnation of the dictatorship of capital. Its prime directives were accumulation and extraction. Its mind, robotic and cold. Neurons of cobalt and lithium mined by child slaves. Its body, a chassis of military steel and colonial gold.
Where does everything come from? How much of it's coming from here? How much of it's coming from somewhere else? What is it that makes it cheap? And so those are things that I think we often take for granted that are very much entangled with the ongoing living legacy of colonialism and coloniality.
We're constantly bombarded by media, by commercials, by TV and other kinds of media that tells us that we need the newest product, the next product, or the fanciest new thing that's out there. But there also seems to be a basic underlying feature of being a human, which is that when it becomes easier to acquire a resource, we tend to overconsume those resources. So when you get more efficient in acquiring resources, we tend to use them more efficiently and almost use them all up. So I'd say that the reason why people from the United States of America consume so much is partly related to the underlying nature of being a human, but also because of the unique cultural makeup that we have that tells us to produce and consume ad infinitum.
Markets are not a new thing, trade is not a new thing, but the way in which we do it, where you have to have a standardized currency, and that value is very much underpinned by imperialism and the legacies of imperialism. There's a uniqueness in terms of the way our world as a globe gets organized.
The unrivaled military, economic, and cultural power of the U.S. empire during the late 20th and early 21st centuries allowed for a state of hegemony never before seen in human history. A vast web of capitalist extraction, manufacturing, and trade would blanket the earth, siphoning resources from the third world to the first, all while contributing to the threat of climate change.
They so easily ignore the smallest of people, the smallest of communities, and create devastation. And it's really hard to not be impacted emotionally by that.
Capitalists knew averting climate catastrophe would mean more regulations and decreased profits. They intentionally suppressed climate activism, preventing societal awareness of the issue until it was far too late.
Remember, just because we're family doesn't mean we don't have to work hard. How far is the ambulance?
You should leave. Who is it, honey? No one. You said he would be working inside.
The conditions inside were so bad that day.
It was 110 degrees outside.
I don't control the weather.
You know, you work for an oil refinery. That's not helping.
Guys, can we not get into this right now, please?
You always put your profits and shit before anybody or anything else, even before my own son's life.
You know what? You guys are always guilt tripping me, making me feel bad for this and that. You know, I'm a branch manager at an oil refinery. You think I have a stake in what the hell goes on? Or the global temperature?
You know, some acknowledgement that there's a problem would be a start. A genuine apology would be a start.
This is a funeral. Can we please treat it like one?
You should go. Go back to your office or your fancy penthouse and be sure to turn on the air conditioning. We wouldn't want you to get overheated.
Just leave.
Go.
For most Americans today, we live in an environment that we are basically not interacting with the actual natural ecology around us, the biological and physical spaces that is like the typical normal environment for a lot of human history. So one of the things that I would love for Americans to understand is that in order to really have a good sense of what climate change is about at a kind of day-to-day kind of experiential level, is that we have to be out there experiencing the change of that ecology in its natural form.
The 2020s would be the decade in which the average American would begin to feel the effects of climate change.
I think about climate change quite often. It's quite hard not to when every day is over 100 degrees. I'm sweating my ass off getting here.
I mean, the icebergs are melting, it gets hotter every year. The power grids go down during the summer because of all the energy that's used trying to make everyone's houses cooler, and it just gets worse every year.
I've been told, heard news all around me. It's like, we need to do something about climate change now. Otherwise, your life, my life, is going to be irreversibly fucked from here on out.
What was once an abstract idea confined to the global south had finally reached the imperial core. Summer got hotter, fire season longer, willing ignorance harder and harder to maintain. One could no longer deny the reality of the situation. Anthropogenic climate change was here, and the future began to look increasingly bleak.
Living in 2024 is tense. There's this constant elephant in the room, no matter where you are. I think everyone can feel it. There's something is gonna happen. I know it. I think everybody else knows it. There's a tenseness. Something is gonna happen. We don't know what it is, but something's coming. And no one's looking forward to it.
There is so much instability in the world. There is so much unrest in the world. It does impact the plans that I'm making. It does impact where I see myself, 5 years from now, 10 years from now. That may not be in the state of Utah. That may not be in the United States. In fact, more likely than not, it's not, because of some of the things that are happening here that concern me greatly.
By the 2030s, several crucial tipping points were reached. By 2031, permafrost was melting in Arctic regions around the world. In 2033, the Greenland ice sheet collapsed, followed by its southern sister the next year. By 2035, over 200 million immigrants were on the move. Instability caused by mass migration and resource shortages triggered a series of conflicts throughout the globe.
Typically, when you have these big kind of like destabilizing societal level actions, like economic declines, loss in belief of the intellectual class, loss in belief in politicians, is typically when people get ready to revolt and kind of tear down society in order to rebuild it anew again with a new set of rules.
As the first half of the century came to a close, the last complex societies clung to life amidst the chaos, unaware of the hell they would come to inhabit.
all breathe the air here. We all depend very heavily on the water here, right? So we're a lot more interconnected in this idea, this split between nature and society.
But again, if we look into the past, really, really deep time, where we find like archaeological evidence of societies collapsing, it seems to many times be related to things like the ecology changing and people not being able to keep up with those ecological changes. For a lot of Americans, because we're buffered by the constructed world that we've made, buildings, AC, piped water, we don't understand the limitations of the environment, and we don't understand how that environment changes over time.
By 2053, a total breakdown of virtually all global systems, natural and man-made, had occurred, from ocean currents to international trade.
It's hard to not be impacted by the things that are going on. And, you see decisions that are being made. You see a carelessness by people that are in power about the world at large.
I think the tension is like being in a bath and someone's just slowly turning up the heat. Everybody else is in the bath. They can all feel the same thing, and everyone's just like, oh, it's getting a little warm in here. But no one's doing anything about it, and we all know it's gonna get hotter. But we're all just kind of sitting there like, yeah, it's getting pretty hot in here.
Warlords rampaged, diseases spread effortlessly. Agriculture became nearly impossible across much of the globe.
A direct impact on our environment, right? The management of waste and how that nutrient load gets into the soil, gets into the water.
Humanity found itself in an entirely alien world, desolate and unforgiving. Perhaps the least deserving of this fate were the animals. Due to circumstances none of them could even fathom, they would be forced to watch their worlds unravel.
You have the animals that are living in absolutely abhorrent conditions. They've been selectively modified through the years of breeding to be unsustainable.
There was no going back. Despite the regret in every surviving human's heart, this could never be undone and would never be forgotten. The only thing to do was to continue forward.
Hey, asshole.
How many of these things do you think are left in the world?
They're as slippery as that little critter. There's more of them than there are of us. There used to be a lot of us around.
I'd be lucky to spot someone within 15 miles of this place.
Right. Shouldn't have let the car idle that one time, you know?
Don't forget about the straws.
Or the plastic bags.
No, none of that would have mattered. We weren't the ones in the suits.
Nope. We're the ones that made all the decisions.
Well, just don't have to worry about that anymore.
Food's ready.
Well, what the hell?
Hey, spent all day catching this.
Well, charcoal adds flavor.
It's a little smoky. That'll do.
The low human activity of the high collapse period allowed for ecosystems to slowly begin recovering from the scorching. While these ecosystems were much less diverse and complex compared to those pre-collapse, their mere presence was a sign of better days to come. The period from 2100 onwards is known today as the regrowth period.
So one of the things that we see is that people come to understand the limits of a resource or ecosystems when they've completely destroyed that resource. And therefore, they can start to change the rules or the norms that they live by in order to adapt to that changing resource.
We all breathe the air here. We all depend very heavily on the water here, right? So we're a lot more interconnected in this idea, this split between nature and society. Is nature not here? Are we not part of nature?
Most of the people that I work with in small-scale societies, like in parts of Latin America and the Caribbean, because they're directly impacted by the flux of the temperatures, changes, ecology, changes in water. They know exactly that climate change is happening because they experience it every day through like their own lived self.
Location-based knowledge between groups allows for more efficient and sustainable methods of producing and gathering food. In parallel, books recovered by nomadic groups would allow for incredible developments in both technology and culture. Many groups would develop egalitarian cultures, where knowledge was of the utmost value. These groups were more likely to cooperate with others around them, wishing to avoid the conflicts that arose in the old world.
It's the individual collective efforts that make mountains move. It's not one person, it's not one machine, it's a collective effort. And if people just realize how important their single effort was to that collective.
Doesn't matter if you're 15, 18, 55, 65, 36, you are a leader in this moment right now. If you have a passion you care about and you want to get involved, there are so many opportunities out there. Find your people, find your community, and go and get involved.
And we've only got one shot on this blue rock that's hurtling through space, and so we need to make the most of it.
We need to talk as people instead of talk about each other, talk together and figure out what's the thing that's the best for the whole country.
It's okay for us to have differences. Same is boring, but can we disagree in a better way, in a more productive way? Can we at least see the humanity in one another as we disagree?
I think about climate anxiety and what that's doing to folks. Those feelings of anxiety are legitimate. They're very much real, and folks need to take care of themselves while they're doing this. Because if you don't, industry doesn't care about the fact that you're depressed or you're sad. They will continue to do what they do. But organized people will always defeat organized money. And so going and finding something where you're meaningfully engaging in your community and building something positive is important and something I would encourage folks to do.
If I could send a message in a bottle backwards across the sea of time, I would tell them, my name is OZYMANDIAS, king of none. Across the sunken soil, my shadow dances. I alone witness this rotted thing, the last living disciple, trapped in your future past. I look upon your works and despair, knowing your kingdom of blood shall continue to kill as it is toppled. The wind speaks clearly, but you do not listen.